Yeah, so welcome. Welcome to Biohacking Life Hacks. So, this is a podcast. I'm Joe Bains, and I started it because I'm a biohacker. So, biohacking is just basically optimizing your health, your performance, mental, physical, your sleep, your anti-aging. It's all about optimizing the biology. And then I came up with the idea of life hacks. Well, why optimize just this? Why not just optimize everything? So I just love life hacks. You know, all these little, and I know loads of people have their own life hacks as well. And I was like, well, I want to know other people's life hacks, you know, because then I may be able to use them. And it could be useful to other people as well. So yeah, just so I have my whole life revolves around optimizing things. And so whatever I learn, I'm always trying to figure out how can I optimize it in some way, make it more powerful, make shorter. You know, like, can I use this over here? And there's some things you cannot optimize. Just like I've tried.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I listened to your most recent interview that you had with people, and you have a lot of similar characteristics to me because I did the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, how can I do this faster and better? And so, yeah, I'm totally with you there.
Oh, great. So Anne, tell me about Anne.
Okay, I'm the same age as you, 55.
Oh,
Right?
nice.
So I think we were
Yeah.
both born in 66.
Yeah.
And it's 22, so we had a lot of numbers this year. Yeah, I live in California. I'm from England. I used to be a software engineer. Had a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I needed things to change. I didn't know I needed them to change until I was in my late 30s. I think you were 50 when you realized you needed to change. Sorry, my dogs have just started howling. I don't know why. I don't think anyone's here.
It adds a good soundtrack to the back. Yeah.
Okay, good. So when I got to my late 30s, I'd actually done a lot of the things that I think you talk about in terms of diet. I'd tried all sorts of diets to try and feel better. And things would work for a little while, and then it seemed like it would revert back to how things used to be. So it got to the place where I had a business altercation with a couple of other mothers at my boys' school, and they told me I'd done something wrong, and I didn't think I'd done anything wrong, but my mind started spinning out of control, just over and over what they'd said, what I'd said, what had happened. I couldn't let it go. And I realized that this isn't normal. I think you thought that at some point too in your journey. It's like, this is not normal. Most people would not react this intensely to something that really wasn't a big deal. And that's when I realized it felt a little bit like how I would react when my dad would tell me I'd do something wrong, I'd done something wrong, and I didn't think I had. It felt the same. So that's when I realized, oh, I bet there's something from my childhood that's still affecting me to this day. And so that was the beginning of my journey. And I've done quite a lot of work since then, right? Because I'm 55 now. At this point, I can put my awareness inside my head and release tension directly in the connective tissue, and have released tension in my bones so that my skull has actually realigned over the years. It's relaxed and it's shifted, which are things that I never knew were possible. And at the age of 55, I have finally reached 5'5". So I'm actually grown 3/4 of an inch in the last few years, which I think is kind of a life hack, right? That's not something we expect to be able to do.
That's a big life hack.
Yes.
So how did you discover this? What process did you go through to?
Well, the first thing that happened was I actually went to a doctor's appointment. I have no idea why I went to him. I can't remember, but it wasn't anything to do with emotions or memories or anything like that. I know that much. But he happened to be a holistic physician, and he recognized that I was more stressed than I should be because I was a stay-at-home mother with 2 healthy young boys. So it shouldn't have been that stressful. And so he asked me on a scale of 0 through 10 what my stress level was. And I said it was an 8. And then he asked me why. And it was that question that made me realize, oh, it was finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19. Those tears and those emotions were still with me. The tears were just under the surface still all those years later. And he happened to know this technique that is called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. It's also called tapping because we're tapping on certain places in our body as we're talking something through. And he tapped with me about my mother's death for about 15 minutes. And I walked away from that appointment being able to tell the story of her death in my mind without the tears there for the first time ever. And that's when I realized that we hold those emotions and those memories physically in our body and that we can let them go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so is that what you do? Is that EFT tapping or?
That was the first step. So yeah, I went home that day and I learned how to use it. I went online. I wanted to know everything about it, right? I have an engineering mind. It's like I wanted to know what it is that's working. What's happening? What do you do? So I learned everything I could. It's available online for anyone to learn for free. And then I wanted to check it out because I wasn't sure that one experiment with this doctor was a fluke. It could have just been a one-time thing, right? So I wanted to try it out. So at the time, I had a 17-year-old cat at home, and we'd just been told that his kidneys were starting to fail and we needed to give him a daily saline shot, an injection. And I hate needles. And the first time I gave him a shot, my hand was shaking so badly. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it every day like that. So I tried out the technique. I tapped about every aspect of it, which is part of what we do with EFT. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting my cat. And I tapped about all the memories from all the injections that I had had over the years, because I had had many. And the next day, when I gave him that shot, the needle just slid right in. All that fear that I had been holding inside the day before had totally gone. So that's when I realized two things. I realized first that EFT is deceptively powerful. It doesn't look like it's doing much, but it really is. And that's when I realized I wanted to be on the other side of that fear. And so that's what started me on my journey. I started noticing on a daily basis how I was feeling, right? When I was reacting to something, and I would tap and bring myself back to peace. And I noticed things started changing. I became more peaceful. I became less reactionary. And I wanted more, right? I wanted to happen faster. It's like, what can I do to make this go faster? So what I did is I wrote down every emotional memory I could think of from my childhood, right? All the big T traumas, all the little T traumas, all the beliefs that I was holding still. And I tapped through one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night on one, and then the next day on the next one. And over the weeks of doing this, things just started to change. I just became more peaceful. My mind, which had been so busy and so negative and so critical and judgmental, it started to change and it started to become peaceful inside, which was totally new to me. Right? I didn't know how. I just felt like I was actually in a different reality is what it felt like, because I hadn't experienced a peaceful mind before and it was changing. And as things change inside of you, things change outside of you, right? So my household started to become more peaceful because I was more peaceful.
Mm. Yeah, in yoga they call that as above, as below.
Yeah. As within, so without.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
right.
that's it, exactly. Yeah.
So that was really the first step of 3 steps that I went through.
Okay, and all the other, and then eventually you turned it into your own technique.
Well, what I realized is EFT it's opening up the subconscious mind. And as that happens, it expands our awareness. So I know, like once you've got used to one step, then you're shown the next one.
Yeah.
So that's what happens with this, is that you start becoming aware at a deeper level. So I started to become aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions, right? We'll talk about, yeah, I'm feeling sad or angry or frustrated, which is just a word, but we're really describing the sensations inside of us, right? If we're frustrated, there's probably tension somewhere, maybe in our solar plexus area, right? But that is that frustration. So I became aware of those physical sensations. And at that point, I didn't feel like I needed to use EFT anymore. I could have done, but I wanted to just feel those feelings. I realized it's just energy that is stuck inside of us. That's what the emotions are. It's just energy that's stuck inside. So I wanted to feel that tension inside of me and allow it to be felt because it had never been allowed to be felt before. I'd always suppressed it. So I started to do something I just call feeling your feelings, right? It sounds very basic, but it's not as easy to do as it sounds.
Especially for men.
Yeah. So I actually started to do it while I was doing the dishes at the kitchen sink. I would notice when I thought a thought that had emotion attached to it, and it could be something as simple as I'm afraid of making a phone call. Right? So that I would think that thought and I would notice where that tension was inside of me, that fear. And for me, fear would sit in my solar plexus, right? Which is kind of, in the stomach area where you feel butterflies. So I would feel that fear and I would try and focus on it. Now, I noticed that if I moved or even if I took a deep breath, I would lose my focus on it because it was so used to hiding. So what I would do is I would actually stop myself, hold myself like a statue, and even stop breathing. So when I could feel that fear, I wouldn't take any more breath at that point. I'd just hold myself like a statue, and I would talk to that fear because I want to focus on it. So I would say things like, okay, I can feel you right there. I can feel this tension right there in my solar plexus. I just want to feel you. I want to allow you to be felt. And I would notice I'd have to take a deep breath at some point and let it out. And then I would think that thought again, and I would notice the fear would have diminished somewhat. So then I would do it again with the same thought, feel the fear, allow it to be felt, and it would dissipate. So I would do it again and again with the same thought until the emotion had gone, at which point that thought is then free.
Wow.
So then in the evenings, instead of tapping, right, I'm still trying to make it go faster. Instead of tapping now, I would bring collective traumas to mind because I'd done my childhood, right? So now I'm moving on. It's like, what's next? Well, I know I feel emotions inside around things like the tsunami or 9/11, or I was in the Loma Prieta earthquake. So I'd bring a thought or memory to mind, feel all those emotions, those feelings, those physical sensations, and allow them to be felt, and they would dissipate. And I would do this over and over again with the same memory. So this was like the second step, and it released a lot of the burden that we carry around with us. Right? It felt good to release energy that had been stuck inside the body for so long. So that was the second step.
Okay, yeah, because that's a lot simpler than EFT, where you're just tapping around the body for an hour, right?
Right. It is simple if you have that awareness. Right. I didn't have the awareness of the physical sensations when I first started doing it because I'd suppressed everything for so long. But if someone already has that awareness, yes, it's simple.
But you develop it over time for you, yeah?
You do, right? The awareness expands. Yes. Yeah.
And then where did you go from there then? Where's step 3?
Well, at some point during this, laying on the sofa, feeling these feelings, at some point, I realized I could keep my awareness inside my body after the tension had dissipated. It was really weird, right? I didn't know what I was doing. It felt different. I knew it felt different. So I knew something had changed. And the only way I can kind of explain it is imagine you have a toothache or a stomach ache, right? You can pinpoint with your awareness where that pain is coming from. But once the pain has dissipated, you can't get your awareness back on the same place because nothing's calling your attention to it. I could put my awareness back inside where I released the tension. And then I started to play around. Well, I've done it once. Can I do it again? And I found that I could. And then now what? So I started to play. I started to move my awareness around inside. And I noticed that I could find a place inside that had tension or no tension. So I'd find a place with tension. I would hold my awareness on it. So I would feel it, focus on that sensation, and just allow it to be felt. So I'm doing the same thing that I was doing with the sensations, right? Even with EFT, because you do the same thing over and over again. Now I'm doing inside on the tension, which I now know is in the connective tissue. I would do it over and over again and it would release. So it took many, many months, but eventually I put my awareness inside my head, which was amazing because there was so much pain and tension inside my head. It was unbelievable to me how much pain there was in my left cheek, and the forces I could feel pulling my bones out of alignment was huge. And I had lived with this for 50 years with no awareness that this pain and tension was inside of my head, right? Because I didn't have that depth of awareness. But at this point, I became aware of it. But now I've got my techniques, right? My tools. So I focus on that pain, allow it to dissipate, and do it again and again and again. And it got to the place that I could actually feel my skull bones relax as I'd let go of enough tension. Felt really, really good. But I didn't know the bones were actually shifting until I got my x-rays taken last year and could see the difference between 2013 and 2021 and see that my eye sockets had aligned. I didn't even know that was possible. And my jaw was way off to the side and it's now much more centered. And my neck, which I've had scoliosis my whole life, so my neck is straighter than it has ever been in my life. I've got more to go, but I think that's why I have grown 3/4 of an inch, because I've let go of that tension in my neck. And it's not that I'm actually growing, it's that I'm releasing the burden that has been holding it down so that I'm reaching my natural height.
So basically, you meditate, and in your meditation, you're moving your awareness around your body inside. Is that what you're
A
doing?
lot of people, when talk about meditation, they're talking about quieting the mind, right? But there are forms of meditation where you're actually sensing in the body. So this is definitely a sensing in the body, right? I'm not in my thinking mind, I'm in my feeling mind, if there's such a thing. Yeah, so it's very different than thinking. It's not imagination, right? I'm not imagining I'm somewhere. I'm feeling. I'm actually sensing. It's like, how does your right knee feel right now? Can you feel your right knee? That's putting awareness on the right knee and feeling it. That's what I'm doing.
Have you heard of Vipassana?
Yes, it's similar to Vipassana.
That's it, yeah. Because as you were describing it, I was like, that's exactly what they're doing in Vipassana. Okay, yeah, because I do Vipassana, and that's what we do. We sit there and we meditate, and we move our awareness slowly around the body. And do you know what happens if you just keep your awareness at one point, just for ages, like hours and days, and
I would say it releases.
yeah, but if you still keep it there, like, and then just hold it for like days, like constantly, there's an explosion. Like, what is it? Yeah, like it just so in Vipassana they take you through the process, and then the last thing they get you to do is to move your awareness slowly around the body, like very like tiny, like from molecule to molecule or cell to cell. And when you do that, after a while of doing this for days, like 12 hours a day, um, it's like you break through. It's almost like taking a psychedelic. You know,
Interesting. It does. I would not call I would not use those words. I
yeah,
do feel releases. I know it's adhesions in the connective tissue that release. I actually hear them and feel them. It sounds like old fabric ripping. So that's what happens. But for me, I will find the place inside that calls my attention, right? That I can feel the most tension. I work on there. I release the tension there, and then somewhere else will call my attention. So I'll work there. So it's almost like a big rope, right? That is bent, and you're cutting through the first strand, and then the tension is taken up by the next 2 or 3 strands, and then you work through one of those, and then it's layer by layer by layer by layer.
So basically, so you sit down and you go, right, okay, because you've done this quite a few times on your body now. So you sit down and you go, right, I'm just going to sit here. And then after a while, and you're feeling, see where's the tension. And eventually you come to one, maybe in your knee, and there's one. And then you just sit there and observe that.
Feel it.
Oh, feel it. Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think
yes.
that's the difference between what you're doing in Vipassana. In Vipassana, we observe it. We just sit there. I don't know if it's the same thing, but we sit there and we'll just keep our awareness there. That's it. But I don't know if we're feeling it or not. Good question.
Yeah, it's difficult with questions, right? So I also say, right, I'm holding my awareness there. I'm holding it at tension. I'm holding my attention on it.
Yeah, that's
just accepting it and allowing it to be. Yeah. Now, initially, I did have to sit down, right, and I had to close my eyes. But now I can multitask, so I can do it pretty much any time of the day. I can't do it when I'm talking to someone, but I can do it when I'm doing the dishes, or I'm watching TV, or listening to the radio. I can multitask now. And I can do it instantly, right? I can instantly go inside and find the next place to focus on.
So you're doing the dishes, but your awareness is in your knee.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I've never tried that. I've never thought of that. Because I do mindful meditation, so where I'm just being aware, do you know?
Uh-huh.
But I've never thought about, while I'm doing other things. Like when I'm walking, I'll do mindful meditation, where I'm just aware of everything. But I've never thought the idea that I should maybe put it in the knee, or
just inside.
Yeah, right? Or wherever the pain is, or okay, that's very clever.
It's opening the third eye. It's the inner eye.
Yeah. That's very. Yeah, I'm just getting my head around that one. Like, it seems like a really simple idea.
It's not as easy to do, right? It does take work to begin with. I remember what it was like when I was just starting on walking our dogs, and I was trying to do both at the same time. It was not easy to do, but it gets easier the more you do it.
So how long have you been doing this this introspection thing?
Well, it's very much developed over time, and I don't know how long I've been going inside. Maybe 5 years.
Oh wow! Okay, so you're practically a master at this now. Then, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy now. It's part of me, right? It's the last thing I do at night, first thing I do in the morning. Whenever I wake up in the night, I'm feeling that tension because it calls my attention to it. It's like, okay, I can feel this tension pulling in my cheek, and I will go inside and release it. So it's just layer by layer by layer.
Wow. Okay. Because I do a lot of meditations, and I've never thought about it. Just sitting there and feeling. So So it's okay. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. It's just a concept. It's just never gone through my head. It makes sense now that you've explained it. Do you know?
Yeah. It's out of the mind. It's into the body. A lot of people, talk about the mind, right, and how important the mind is, and they actually use that phrase insight. They use that in terms of the mind, right? I believe this is the original meaning of the word insight, as in inward sight or inside sight, right? Being able to see inside.
That's exactly what it's called. It's called insight meditation.
Okay. And that's what I call my book, right? A pathway to insight, right? The steps to be able to get inside and sense inside, basically.
And is that available on Amazon, isn't it? Or
It is, yes.
yeah, yeah. And how long did it take you to write that book?
Maybe about a year. I mean,
Okay.
I'd got to the place where it was easy to go inside, and I wanted to write the steps along the way before I forgot them, and all the details of the steps along the way, because the body does some weird things when it's releasing tension that's been stored inside for decades.
Yeah, because as you've been explaining it, I've been doing what is that exactly what you're saying. Like when you were talking about your belly, I was like, okay, yeah, mine must have something in there. And I've been trying to move my focus around and trying to see if I can feel anything. I can't, but I haven't. But then I haven't done enough practice.
Yeah, and
Uh,
yeah, it will develop over time for sure. It's just awareness at a deeper level.
and do you find, like, because you've been doing it for so long, that you can put your awareness now in your entire body, like in the bones and, like, the connective, like you said, the connective tissue,
I'm
like.
definitely working in the bones. I'm working in my tooth roots, in my cheekbones, and it's really dense, right? It feels denser in there. I can't tell if I'm in a different organ,
Mm,
right? I know where my awareness is in 3D space, right? So I can tell when my awareness is where my heart should be, but it doesn't feel any different from anywhere else, except bone does feel different. And I would say that awareness expands, and you don't know what you don't know, right? We know that phrase. I don't know what I don't know. So I know there's some places that I cannot get my awareness yet inside, but I don't know all of them because I'm not aware of them all yet.
right. Because when I do vipassana, I can put my attention on my heart, and I can feel, the heart doing all those things. It becomes quite loud, um, and also, in vipassana, what we do is we keep the focus on one point, and we just hold it there. And what it ends up is that your focus become thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until eventually it sort of breaks through, like into like a psychedelic world or something.
Huh. And
And
I
but
bet
that
it's breaking through the connective tissue, but you don't have that awareness inside yet, so you're not aware that it's doing that.
Yeah, but because we're not, because that's the other thing with the Vipassana. They tell us this, but because that's not what our focus is. That's not what our intention is. Our intention isn't to release tension. Our attention, intention is to focus, is to because of what they teach us in Vipassana is that the mind is like a knife, and before you can dissect anything with it, you have to sharpen it. And so, holding that tension, we're sharpening the knife. And eventually, the knife gets so fine, so sharp, that it cuts through reality in some way.
Yeah. Well, I would say mine is sharp enough that it cuts through connective tissue, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually imagine it being a scalpel and
Okay.
feel, right? My awareness is deep enough that I can feel the release. So I can feel that it is releasing things inside that feel like old fabric ripping. So yes, it is very powerful. So
Yeah.
I think that would be the end result. And that is as within, so without. So as you are doing that, you are changing things on the outside too.
Yeah, because they do tell us that, you'll find sometimes it'll release things, but don't get attached to the things that are being released. Allow them to release, and then allow them to go, because your focus. So the whole of Vipassana is the attention is not, to release tensions in the body. It's just to sharp. It's just to train the mind, basically.
Right.
But
So
yeah,
with the
so
EFT, right, with the EFT, I was going in and finding those places that had the most tension stored inside, right, through words, through the memories, right? So that would be the life hack, right? I'm going
yeah,
inside, I'm finding that tension, that dis-ease inside, and I'm releasing it one by one, faster than something like meditation does.
yeah, 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 definitely, because that's where your focus is. It's because ours isn't, well, in Vipassana, the focus isn't to release anything. The focus is just, but like you're saying, if that is what your focus is, then you obviously you'll train yourself to do it in a different way. Okay, all right, that's okay. That's very powerful. That's a very powerful concept, I would say. Yeah, that would be life changing. So do you teach this now, or?
I have my YouTube videos where anyone can go on and learn the different techniques that are on there. If you just
Yeah,
look up and Hince. And I have my book which explains the different steps. So that's really the form of teaching it and sharing my story on podcasts like this.
brilliant. Yeah, no, this
Because I
is
want people to know how powerful we are, right? I had no idea that we could change our skull, right? I didn't know this was possible. So I want other people to know what's possible.
Mm. Have you heard of something called the Journey Intensive?
No.
It does similar to what you're doing, but it's doing it with questions. But it takes like 30 minutes to an hour to do. And basically, you go into that part of the body and you ask it questions. Like, and then and the body, and you sort of guess what the answers are because obviously it's not going to talk. Or things float up into your mind, and that must be the answer. And so you just grab whatever comes up. How does that feel? Oh, what do you think that's related to? And you think, well, and then some thought pops up in your head, and you go with that. And then if you keep doing that, it sort of releases it. So,
Right.
but I
That's
think,
very similar. Yeah,
yeah,
because memories are definitely stored inside of us, right? Because I can
yeah,
focus on a particular place, and as it releases, a memory will pop into my mind. So I know they're there. The power I have noticed in EFT is it's actually the physical aspect of tapping on our body, tapping on the meridian points that allows the energy to release from the nervous system. So in my experience, something like EFT would work faster because of that physical aspect of it. The actual tapping itself works better than just using the words. Right? Until you've got the awareness that you can actually feel inside and just put your attention on the tension, then I think something like EFT works really well.
So could you combine that? So let's say you got uh, a pain in your knee. So you focus on the knee, you put your awareness in the knee, and then you tap with
Yes,
that.
EFT does work that way. Yeah, so you tap on the knee, you tap on every aspect about the knee that you can think of consciously, right? So when did something happen that affected the knee, right? When did it first start hurting? How does it feel? And then you would tap through all those things. And then if another memory popped up in your mind as you were doing that, because you're opening up the subconscious mind, as a memory comes up, you could tap on that and release the energy around that memory, and then maybe a different memory would pop up or a different feeling or a different emotion, and then you tap on that. So yeah, you follow the trail that the body gives you.
I remember I remember seeing a YouTube video or something. I can't remember what it was by some EFT expert. This was years ago, and he said, where you're tapping, if you put like a voltmeter or something, there's a voltage difference. There's some sort of like earthing thing going on. I don't know exactly, but if you put the voltmeter on, and to find out that exact spot, if you put the voltmeter, eventually there'll be a point where the voltage changes. I can't remember in which direction, but it's so there's some sort of electrical system going on here, and those EFT tapping points are meridian, like I think you call it meridian point, but voltages change there.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, it does. I mean, it does. It releases the energy that's stuck in the nervous system, is the way I describe it. So
Yeah.
yes, it's definitely doing something.
So in terms of what are your, like, if I had to ask you, what are your let's say, 3 biggest life hacks in your life that you do either on a regular basis that you find very powerful, that are life changing for you, what would they be?
The first biggest, most important one would be just noticing when we're emotional. Right? Because we tend to get caught up in our emotions so much. So being able to stand back and say, oh, look at me, I'm actually getting frustrated, or I'm getting sad, or whatever. That is a huge shift for people, to just notice that. So that's the first one. The second one would be learning and using EFT, right? Once you've noticed you're emotional, then you want to bring yourself back to peace, because we are a signal, and we emit a signal and we attract back based on our signal. So when we can bring ourselves back to peace, that's our signal, and that's where we're attracting back peace back into our life. And then the third one, I guess, would be feeling feelings.
And then how would you teach somebody to feel? Like especially men. I mean, I'm a Sikh, so I come from a culture of warriors. So, as a warrior, that feelings are irrelevant. And so we're literally taught not to feel. And so I grew up not feeling. And so I had to learn to feel. But how do you teach somebody to feel?
Well, then that would have to come through the different steps. And EFT would be the first one. Yeah. We're about to run out of time. Right?
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. I will. Let's reconnect. It takes about a minute for me to reconnect. So let's reconnect. Yeah. Ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. There we go. Okay. Cool. So let me carry on with what we were just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there was a guy who didn't know how to feel, right, then it's going to take time. But the first thing is to realize when you would, or when a normal person would be emotional, right? To realize that, oh, other people are getting emotional. Maybe this is a time that a normal person, right, someone who knew how to feel, would be emotional. And then you could, if you knew EFT, if you knew how to tap, you would just tap using the words, right? This has happened. Whatever this is that's happened, other people are feeling emotions. So I would just tap on what just happened, right? The words that happened. And you don't have to be aware of those emotions to begin with, because as you tap through the events, you will release those barriers, that we all have to begin with. And you'll become aware at some point of what the emotion is. But it's going to take some work, because you've been programmed not to feel. So it doesn't mean you don't feel, it just means we've got this barrier that we've got to break through first in order to become aware of those feelings.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That's because when we were reconnecting, I felt like a short, sharp pain in my left hip. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to. But then I ran home, so maybe it was something to do with that.
Yes. But all those feelings, right, the pains that we have, it's our body calling our attention to it. Right, which makes sense when you think about that. Right, it's sending us a signal. So then, if we give it attention, that's what it wants. It wants to be felt. It wants to be acknowledged. Then it'll dissipate. Some takes more work than others, right? Sometimes some things have been around for a longer period of time. They just need more attention. But they will release layer by layer by layer.
And then once it releases, then you move to the next one, and then you move to the next one.
Right. Then you're shown the next one. Now, I really hope there's an end point, right? At some point, which I imagine is enlightenment, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. But we do become aware at the next deeper level. So it gets deeper and deeper each time. And as that happens, right, life actually gets better. I think a lot of people think this journey is not a fun one. But it is. It really is fun. Like that burden that we've been holding on to gets released, right? We get lighter. Becomes easier to laugh, right? Life, we see all these serendipities all the time. So life becomes more magical. as we go about releasing more and more of this tension that we've been storing.
Yeah, and do you believe in previous lives?
Yes.
Yeah, so the once you fix all your tensions in this body, then you start fixing them right in previous lives, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I've got to the place now where I'm working inside the bones, right? So it's no longer conscious. I'm not conscious of, there's no memories that are popping up, right? I think it's programming into the subconscious mind that I am releasing now. So yes, who knows what I'm releasing from the past?
Because I was at a seminar, this journey intensive seminar. I mean, I'm a software engineer as well. I'm like a cloud engineer, right?
Huh,
And
okay.
I still have fun with the computers, or they have fun with me. So brilliant. Right, I'll just carry on. I think everything's working now.
Okay, so you were telling me about past lives.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, past life. Yeah, so this woman stood up, put her hand up, everything, right? And I was like, okay, she did clearly has something to say. So she said, yeah, go for it. Let's speak. And she goes, I'm here because, I was raped, by my dad. And then I was also raped by my husband, my boyfriend, like all through her life. She's gone through one rape scene after another. And we're like, oh, that's really, like that's, she was like, and it was a woman that was running the thing. And everybody was like, quite taken back by this. And that's what I'm here to heal. She goes, okay, fair enough. And then she sent everybody off to go in pairs to do this treatment on each other. And then afterwards, we came back, and this woman put her hand up again, right? We're like, okay. And it's just like, okay, we'll speak. And she goes, yeah, I had my treatment, and it was amazing. She said, I went to all my past lives. And he said, in each of my past lives, in one of my past lives, she was the deer that was being hunted by the hunter, right? And then the past life before that, she was the hunter hunting the deer. And then in past life before that, she was a soldier killing some peasants. In the past life before that, she was a peasant being killed by that soldier. And in the previous life, she was a rapist. And then in the previous life to that, she was being raped. Do you know, so she was both of them.
Right. And we do,
Right?
we get programmed, right? We get programmed in childhood, right? If we see a victim and a perpetrator, right? A mother and a father, something happening, we experience both sides of it. So we get programmed with both sides of it. So, as an adult, we may experience one, we may be one or the other, but we have both living inside of us.
That's it. Yeah. That's what she's saying. She was like that, she was the rapist and she was being raped. She was a hunter and she was being hunted. She was the killer and she was being killed. She was both of them.
Right. So if you were using EFT with something like that, you would tap on both sides, both perspectives. Right?
Okay.
One might be more intense inside of you, and that's the one we'd work on first. And then once that's cleared, then we'd work on the other person, right? Being in the other perspective, in the other shoes, the other person's shoes. What would that feel like, right? What would that experience be like? And tap through that and let that go too.
Okay. And EFT would take what? You would say 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you just keep doing it?
You just keep doing it until it feels like a story and feels like you're reading from a book, right? There's no emotion, no charge left to the memory.
All right. Okay. All right. Because I've done EFT, but I just do it a couple of times and then move on.
Yeah, no, it takes intense work, and it's it's similar to Vipassana, right? Similar to putting the awareness inside and holding it there. In EFT, we're using the words to hold that awareness on the memory or the feeling, right, until it's released.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
That's why I used it like an hour to an hour and a half of tapping on one single trauma, one single event, or one single belief. and allowing it to dissipate.
And then eventually, like you're saying, it becomes nothing. And then you go, it's released now.
Right. It's just a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At the end, yeah, they're all just stories that we carry around.
Yeah.
Okay. And what would you like if that? Did you have kids?
I have kids.
Yeah. So okay, that makes it easier to ask the question. So what would you? How would you bring up your kids? In terms of what you've learned in life, like what would you want to teach them? What would you? What would be the process for or the concept of bringing up kids? Like, what advice would you give?
Well, it's always best to work on ourselves first, for sure, right? So if we think our kids are doing something that we don't like, right, or they're creating some emotion inside of us, we're frustrated about something that they're doing, then we tap on ourselves and we let that frustration go in ourselves, because that itself can change them, as within, so without, right? But we can also teach them how to do the tapping, or we can use it with them. My youngest son used to have nightmares, and he'd come and wake me up. I'd go back to his room with him, and I would just tap on his points. I don't need to use any words at that point because he's already feeling those emotions inside of him. So I would just tap on him, and eventually it'd get to the place where he'd say, "Okay, Mom, I can go back to sleep now," and he would. Right, so that's a way that they can learn the power of it themselves.
All right. So would it be worth teaching in schools then, like as like as part of their emotional intelligence or whatever?
Absolutely, it would. And there are a number of schools, a number of hospitals that do teach EFT to people and use it. Yeah, I mean, it's most powerful when you use it, right? So, after kids come back in from lunchtime or recess, right, and they're all hyped up, right? If you could tap then, or tap about whatever happened during recess, maybe their best friend said something nasty to them or something, right? And just tap through that and allow the emotion to go so that they're back to peace and can move on with their day. That's very powerful.
Okay, all right. That's okay. But yeah, all right. I'm just like trying to, while we're having a chat, I'm actually moving my awareness, going, all right, where have I got a problem? Where have I got a problem? And I have, yeah. I mean, I've done loads of work on myself, but there's always something more, because it just never seems to end, does it? That's
enlightenment. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had like many frustrations where I'm like, I've done all this work and still there's more, And,
right. And there's the frustration, right? That's what you tap on, right? The frustration that I've still got more to do. Yeah, it's not always easy to see where we are right now, right? Because it's kind of hidden from us. But yeah, if we're frustrated because there's more to do, that's where we are right now. We can feel that frustration, right, which takes away that little barrier, and then the next thing to do will come up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's really good. All right. And that's yeah. And so are you a coach in terms of doing this method or teaching this or?
I can. I don't really work with very many individual people, but I can if someone really wants that. But I share all my information in my book and online. And I'm happy to speak to any audience that would like to hear this information. That's what I want to do. That's my ultimate goal, is to traveling around talking to people.
Okay, all right. Well, what I'll do is I'll put the links to your YouTube, your Amazon book, and your YouTube channel, and all that kind of stuff. And if the people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
Sure, I've got my website, which is annehince.com, and the X-rays are on there, so you can go and see how powerful this is. And I have a public Facebook page, and I'm happy to interact with anyone on there. And I try and explain things on there. We have a lot of those memes and sayings and things that go around, and I like to explain how they work. So I do that on there.
And you got your YouTube channel where you explain all this. I will go and watch a couple of videos because yeah, I'd like to really get into this. Like because I think I need a lot of this. Like I mean,
Well, all our memories, all our trauma that's stored inside of us is really dis-ease inside of us. So if we actually go and address it, we're releasing that tension and dis-ease inside. And heck, that's got to be worth it, right?
yeah, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, because nobody wants disease in their bodies.
Right.
Like it gets in the way of everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of
Yeah.
people are scared of doing it, right? And it's just energy that's stuck in the body. All we got to do is find a way to release it, and then
Mm.
it's gone.
Yeah. Because for me, being a man and coming from the culture, I focus on physical hacks. Like keto, for example. I do keto, intermittent fasting, Wim Hof, ice baths, that kind of stuff. Like like because I'm focused outwards to do things out there, like to move things. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's a man thing, or the masculine as they call it. Um,
Could
I,
be. It's also what people do when they've been traumatized, right? That's what I was looking outside of myself.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. Because I'm looking for blame outside. I'm like, it's their fault, it's his fault, her fault, and I'm like, no, 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 hang on a minute, slow down, like so I'd have to tap that as well, wouldn't I?
Right. Yeah, we'd love to blame other people, right? But we can always bring it back to ourselves. That's what our power is if we're blaming someone else, there is some emotion inside of us that we're not seeing because we're
Yeah,
blaming them. But really, it's affecting us, and we have to find that and release that.
yeah, but for me, because of the meditations allowed me to become aware. Like when my mind does this, I'll catch it and I go, oh, okay, oh, hang on a minute, what are you doing? Like, and it's not me doing it, it's somebody else doing it. Well, it's that monkey mind. And it's just like catching it and going, okay, he's misbehaving. But I just become aware of it and then I just stop it. But I should tap that, right, as well.
Right. Or feel it.
I'll feel it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Brilliant. Yeah. No, this has been very enlightening in terms of like you've shifted, but things I do already that I can actually change the perspective and get different results or better results, and yeah, no, this is really good. So, what are you looking to do in the next like 5-10 years in terms of in terms of this technique or
Wow, that's a long time. Yeah.
mm,
I'm working on it every day. I'm getting my awareness deeper inside my head, inside my skull, releasing deeper and deeper tension. I don't know what the end result's going to be, but it feels good to release more and more tension. So
yeah,
yeah, we'll see what the end result is.
okay,
I have some ideas. I our awareness, as our awareness expands, our understanding expands as well, right? And our awareness of other people and awareness of energy outside of ourselves. So I can see it's like a jigsaw puzzle, a lot of the symbology that we see around us. So I can understand that. I can understand some of Jesus's sayings from a totally different perspective than I ever saw before.
mm,
So I know that he was able to do this too, right? He was able to put his awareness inside, and I'm trying to interpret what he was saying through my perspective from looking inside. So it's going to be fun.
okay, all right, and then you have some ideas. Like I'd love to know where you think it could, if you keep doing this for let's say 5 years, where would you think you'd end up? Like just your theories on that. I'd be because I think there's some value there.
Okay. Are you thinking I should tell you now?
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Okay. And I'm writing my second book, so my second book's going to go
Ah,
into this, and it might, what I'm going to say might scare some people off, but I believe that God, whatever that is, I don't know at this point either, but I believe God is actually in the sphenoid sinus inside the skull. It's the bone that's in the center of the skull, and I believe from everything, all the clues that I've seen and my understanding, I believe that's in there. That God is inside the sphenoid sinus, inside the skull, and that's why the skull is revered so much in like secret societies and such. So eventually, I'm imagining I will be able to put my awareness in there, deep inside the skull, and who knows? I don't know. I don't know what that means. Right?
yeah.
That's just my understanding at this point.
All right. There's a woman, and when you mentioned that, it brought this to my mind. That there's a woman from Howard University. She's a brain researcher, and she wrote what was it book? It was like I think what's it called? Something about insight. A stroke of insight or something like that. Yeah. But she's got a TED talk about it, and basically, and I can't remember which side of the brain, but she has like a brain hemorrhage or something, and one side of the brain shut down, and it was this, it was the cerebral part of the brain where the ego is and all that kind of stuff. The part of the brain that allows you to operate in this world, that part of the brain shut down. And what she said was that as soon as that part of the brain shut down, her awareness and her consciousness went to the other side of the brain. And as soon as the consciousness went to the other side of the brain, she was enlightened. Like she she became everything, and she could see everything. Like the whole of cosmos or reality, and she couldn't tell the difference between where her body ended and where everything else started. Like it was all one, and she could see all the energies moving around. But while that part of the brain was shut down, she couldn't operate in the real world. Like to string a sentence together, she had problems. She couldn't operate the phone. Like all that kind of stuff, which is, and I can't remember which side of the brain it is. So I'm guessing, like, if you put your awareness on that part, on the side of the brain, she called it, one side of the brain is parallel, and the other side of the brain is serial, and the serial is the one that we're talking with, and the parallel is one. She says is permanently connected to God. And so
Interesting. Yeah.
when you move your awareness fully into that part of the brain, then you suddenly become aware that you're connected to God. So she said that connection is always there. It never goes. But as soon as you put your awareness there, then you become aware. And then you see everything.
So interesting. So in the sphenoid sinus, there's like a partition between the two. Right? And I'm thinking that partition, from what I've read, I believe that partition would almost be circumcised. I believe that's the original meaning of the word circumcision, is that particular part, which is like the male and the female, the join between the two. Once that is released, I don't know how that would happen, but at that point you become one.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. That's the word. Yes, you become one. Okay. Yeah, because like if you release everything in your head, then you should become a lion, right?
Right. Yeah. It's just, which is really just a deep relaxation or a deep release of tension that we stored inside. That's all that's happening. It's just happening at a deeper and deeper layer. And I apologize for my dogs.
That's okay. That's all right. Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, listen. So, is there any last words you want to say? Because yeah. So, I think this has been very interesting. I'll create the. So what I'll do is it'll be a YouTube video, and then it'll also be a podcast, like just audio podcast as well. So, because I love video as well. So yeah, it'll appear on both.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. It's just been amazing. Yeah. You've been very enlightening for me. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Totally worth the run home.
Good. It's late there now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening or day or whatever it is.
Thank you. Yes, it is early evening here.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.